Hello, my Q in Charge listeners and followers. This is your host for today, Sergey Maroevich, and I'm also the founder and CEO of the company Q Charge, which is a one-stop shop entity and a turnkey solution for the EV charging infrastructure and networking provider. However, I did had recently an opportunity to join last Expo of Electrification of the United States that was just held in Austin, Texas, from November 10 until November 12th. Amazing 2.5 days that I had an opportunity to interact with some of the newcomers in the market of the EVs and had opportunity to test drive approximately 20 different types of the vehicles being presented at the show. On top of that, I had the opportunity to test drive two motorcycles. There was a vast number of the two-wheelers over there, from the bicycles and the motorcycles, even the scooters. However, my eye-catching was those two motorcycles, but more of that later down the line. First day of the expo, we had Industry Day, and it was very good panelists. They shared their insight on their vision in the EV sector from aspects of the EV sales, EV users, and experiences of theirs, case scenarios and panelists, personal experiences as well, including the charging station providers with the networking and software support. How did they venture to the certain overcoming of the issues in the field, and just in general, how the networking support for all these people worked in the field. They addressed on the first day of Expo all the potential future and current issues in the EV market and sales, difficulties, whys and no's. There are currently obstacles to faster sales of electric vehicles, electrical infrastructure challenge, and responsiveness by utility companies, charging station solutions and their availability and dependability. All the panelists had a lot of good insight information that they shared with attendees. The only thing that I believe, and that's again my humble opinion, is that the organization should bring more diversity of the panelists and in the higher numbers as well. The reason why I'm saying this is I've been present on a lot of these EV summits and expos, and most of the panelists are repetitive in some of the information being provided to the listeners is also repetitive in the nature. This is one of the reasons why I'm saying the organization should also, and not only this organization, but any other future EV expos should also consider the diversity of the panelists, or potentially start implementing and bringing newer faces to these shows and events, so that we can have more diverse views and on all the topics and thematics, including the issues and solutions from a different perspective. However, I must say the organization was very pleasing, well organized, and it had everything what one expo of this nature should have. I will bring up one very good point to you, my listeners, and to all people who are trying to venture into purchasing electric vehicles. But they're hesitant to do so due to concerns, as everybody has. And what is the most common? Well, range of anxiety and where to charge. One of the questions that I can say it was very interesting that we heard on the panel, how inconvenient is for people that they have to do extra long trip preparations and plans using their electric vehicles. So they could plan the route where to make the stops for their charging sessions, and hopefully that those charging stations will be available and operable when they come to it. And we got a really good answers, well, more to say an answer to these questions within a question. How many times per year do you plan long trips for you and your family members or friends, or whatever type of an occasion that is going to lead you to this type of an excessive planning to use an electric vehicle on those trips? So, well, the simple answer to that would be we could anticipate two, maybe one to maybe two times per year. So why would you obstruct yourself or prevent yourself from purchasing an electric vehicle? Just for one or two, maybe trips down the line that would need a bit of a planning. I mean, seriously. Instead, put your mindset on how much savings per month you will have just by simply not paying for the gasoline price anymore. I'll give you an example. If you take into consideration that the average daily commuter or commuting is home to work, work to home, and a basic driving essentials, daily routines, for that, you will need to, on average, to spend on your electrical bill to charge your electric car somewhere around $30 to $50 compared to $300 to $500 per month for your combustion engine vehicles. And I believe so that $300 to $500 per month is the US average spendings on a gasoline. So just to be able to commute daily, I mean, consider how much of money you're going to save. Second good point, an observation is that most families today have at least two vehicles per household, which was also one of the good points by the panelists stating that at least one of those two vehicles should be an EV, and they don't see the reason why not to. To be honest with you, I do agree with this statement. Prices of electric cars are at the moment still somewhat higher, and I do understand the concern of the regular consumers, how much money they're going to spend for purchasing these type of vehicles. However, due to competitiveness from the East, the price started drastically to drop down, and we can see that as we roll in a daily routine on this type of industry. And we anticipate that the price range will soon be in decline due to some factors as well. So what those factors are or might be? Well, simply those factors can be categorized or described in several different ways. At first, people cannot afford to pay a hefty price for electric vehicles compared to the ICE cars. So we definitely need to start anticipating sales of used electric vehicles to be in the near future in the rise. I will give you an example. Volkswagen Golf ID4, due to the competitive price of Chinese vehicles, they had to drop the selling point price in China to only $16,000 compared to double price in the EU and US. That can be one of the indicators that once the Chinese manufacturers or any other competitors are going to qualify to import the vehicles into the United States of America, it will definitely create competitive pricing that will potentially force other OEM manufacturers to drop their pricing as well. One of the panelists also mentioned one very good point on one main issue and concern, and that was that the majority of the OEM manufacturers of the vehicles here in the United States just starting to venture into EV departments, and they're trying right now to create their EV lines. And they are mainly concentrate on a high-end and big vehicles. The market is not just with the money that would need to be, majority of these manufacturers to start thinking about, but also the small guys. So what about them? People that they cannot afford, or let's say the neighbor next door that can barely afford $2,000 used vehicle as of now, how he can venture purchasing the vehicles that they're like $30,000 or $40,000. So how can it be affordable this way or competitive? If you look at the US market, there are not so many vehicles available that they are fully electric. At the same time, compact and smaller sized vehicles can be more affordable by pricing than mid-sized sedans, SUVs, and performance vehicles. I'll give you another example. BYD, which, by the way, that's Tesla of China, has a vehicle in the market for around $10,000. And its size is similar to Chevy Volt or ID4 or smaller size vehicles. Where are these options here in the United States for all the people to be able to potentially afford new vehicle and to be EV. The world shifted from, I mean, not so long ago, let's say about maybe 50 years ago, when we all had one vehicle per family and where everybody depended heavily on that one transportation in a household. Now, today, at least in the Western countries, right, most of the families have multiple transportations, and people are mostly by themselves in the vehicle, commuting from work and back, and all the essentials as we just described in the beginning of this podcast. So there is no longer necessity as in the past to have extra space or large size vehicles. I mean, of course, unless if we are planning road trips or vacations and holidays, yeah, of course, that can be a secondary vehicle. I believe that this should be the main mindset of transformation for the OEM manufacturers of the vehicles if we want to seize this opportunity for a greener future for humanity. I mean, at least I hope so. That's the reason why we're doing all this. But let me continue our podcast. And in this segment of our podcast, I would like to touch a bit on my personal experience driving some of these vehicles. I have to say that the highest impression, at least on me, was by the Porsche Taycan. And not just because it was a high performance vehicle, but because of the interior design, vehicle sound effects, enormous amount of features on your dashboard and functionalities, and standard HUD that is very nicely done with the good information on your windshield displayed almost all the time during the drive. So there is almost no necessity to kind of even look on your dashboard or what speed it is, because it just displays right away on your windshield. Very good acceleration response, including good stopping time, regardless of the 40% heavier vehicle than the standard ICE vehicles. In general, it was a very good experience being behind the wheel of such a beast of the car. I mean, you just have to try. Seriously, folks. Switching from eco mode to a sport mode, it's very easy, and you can definitely feel the significant difference in driving style, from the firmness of your steering wheel to firmness of your suspension systems and braking time responses. All that comes into the really synchronized place, and you can actually feel it. Of course, acceleration in a sports mode is beyond my expectation. The next impressive electric cars, in my opinion, were by BMW, and specifically the models i5, i7, and M-Class. I could say that these are some sort of very similar between all these three models and other across. And also comparing to the Porsche Taycan, at least in certain features, suiting design, in the number of the features, a nice dashboard, shift knob solution, and etc. The only difference, I say, is in the performance and their acceleration, but it is so minimalistic. Most of the other features, I would say, are in a close race with, of course, a difference that Porsche has more horsepower, of course. But I would say for the rest of the features, they are neck to neck. The ride was very smooth, and I could say with a very good acceleration and braking response comparing to Porsche. Very soothing interior, as I stated, and design, and vast features inside their cockpit. HUD features are available the same as in a Porsche Taycan, and all of them had very good mileage ranges. However, I do have a backlash on their SUV design iX. I mean, I don't even know where to start, but it was not as I expected. Starting from the opening of the doors, it sounded very flimsy and makes a very poor plastic assembly sound, almost like a child toy. Windows are very shaky, and you have a feeling like they will break off. The seats were also not that comfortable as comparing to the rest of the models, and not what I expected for an SUV. The ride should be smoother, being an SUV than comparing to i5 or i7 or M-Class vehicles. However, I found that i7 had better suspension system than the SUV. Overall, my pick would be i7 and M series. Next, the next pit stop was Lexus, and their new model, full EV RZ. But for the price that they are selling them, for, they do not offer a lot of features compared to the others. I can say the interior design was expected, really good. However, nothing to set them apart compared to their competitors. Acceleration was a bit sluggish and not as responsive as other vehicles. There is not much difference between the ICE vehicle and their EV model vehicle. I mean, if you look at their design, interior, exterior, they're almost look-alike, with a minimalistic design change in their interior to accommodate electric car features and commands on the dashboard. I would say that Lexus had the least amount of interest from the people. In my opinion and my list, they are at the bottom. I would definitely not engage, at least by myself, of purchasing Lexus. Polestar was, in my opinion, one of the average vehicles, and definitely not worth the price. That was another disappointment on my list. And comparing the price with their competitors and offerings from the dashboard and performance was not as I expected. I had, to be honest with you, higher hopes for the Polestar. Since I never experienced it in a real life, this was my first time, and I was kind of a bit disappointed. I liked that they kept the traditional design of shifting on the middle console, as we have it today on all ICE vehicles, majority at least. Since our memory muscle is where the shifter is, right, and goes straight on our right-hand side, I mean, our hand just goes basically subconsciously to search for that shifter on a mid console, compared to some other brands and shifters that was just a push of a button. In some instances, very inconveniently placed and not that visually seen or easily to identify. I would say that there was not, any specific feature to set them apart compared to the competitors. In my opinion, I would definitely not consider it to buy. Well, next, well, I'll take next on Mitsubishi as the next vehicle to describe, since they did not had full EV. However, they did come with a presentation of a plug-in hybrids. I could say that, not only, but one of the major, benefits of a plug-in hybrids is that the combination of the conventional gasoline and the small battery packs help with the price cost per mile. The second benefit to plug-in hybrids would be that they do not solely depend on electric charging stations, so you can have your regular daily driving routine as a normal, with a small benefit to save you the money on a monthly basis for your gasoline. On average, well, you could save somewhere about 30 to 40% on your monthly spending on your gas. The interior is stylish, however, the dashboard is minimalistic. It does have third row of the seats, which is not convenient at all. To be able to use the third row, the second row of the seats has to be pulled relatively close to the first row of the seats, where you have second and the third row very limited space for your feet and your leg space. The third row could be only categorized for potentially children passengers or a small size passengers. Not great design at all.
EVs are becoming more popular and in higher demand. To support EVs' drive, a reliable network of charging stations are needed. Charging stations provide convenience, generate revenue, and increase property value. Charging with renewable energy sources reduces your carbon footprint. Battery storage solutions ensure power outage protection. EV charging stations are important for building a sustainable future. Take advantage of rebate programs and federal tax incentives. Let us help you on this journey every step of the way. Choose your partner, not a vendor. QCharge.
Next disappointment on the list, it is Volkswagen and their pride of ID4. Well, I'll just start from this. Me, as a European and being a big golf enthusiast in my youth, having three of them in the past, and also in the past, I had also four Volkswagen Corrado G60s. Even today, I possess one of them as still. I was very disappointed with the design and performance of the Volkswagen and how poorly Golf ID4 was performing and just in general design. The price is, in my opinion, way too high for very poor quality in the features. I mean, acceleration was like, like I was driving vehicles from the 60s or 70s, and I'm not talking about the muscle cars, but European models like a four cylinders, which they had no power and slowly picking up on the speed compared to their competitors. I mean, really disappointed. I could say, I could say that on the show, overall, in this Expo, when it comes to acceleration response, Volkswagen had it the worst, followed by Polestar, Lexus, and Honda BZ4, which I'll talk about a bit later. The interior is nothing special and no big flashy features on the dashboard as well. No HUD, a very minimalistic dashboard, as I already said, and not convenient in a weird position for shifting and parking, all on the push buttons. I mean, total disappointment in my eyes. I don't want to backlash them anymore. So anyway, my next one is going to be VinFast, and Vietnamese OEM car manufacturer. They had a good variety of the vehicles on the show, and they have very unique design and look. And for the instance, the rear of the vehicle somehow resembles on the older BMW models, specifically like on SUVs or mid-size crossovers, especially when it comes to the crossover and SUV, as I already said. Their solution for VF9 is, by my opinion, best car they have to offer, with 3-row seats. Very spacious, extremely nice interior design, very luxurious look, a lot of features on the dashboards, great performance and acceleration response, good mileage range, and of course, competitive pricing. Their model VF3 is a compact version of the vehicle, and it is definitely a vehicle to keep an eye and to keep in mind due to their size and pricing. Size can be very important for parking on the streets where you can find way easier to squeeze your vehicle into the smaller parking stalls when you have, of course, smaller size of the car. So a very good daily commuter for shorter distances, because the batteries are smaller compared to the other models, so they do not have that much of a great and good mileage range. But however, definitely vehicle to keep an eye on. The test drive was nice, comfortable vehicle and comfortable cars with a good dashboard and good features that they come with. Not too complicated to understand the use of the vehicle, good response time on interactions across all the functionalities. Definitely worth for the price they're asking. Volvo came with the 3 SUV models, and they had a C30, C40, and XC90 model, and I can tell you all three of them, they are very look-alike when you compare them, but they do have very small type of details, specifically between the model of 30 and 40, and of course the model 90. It's one of the largest of their SUVs with a third row of the seating capacities. As for the SUV side of the presentation of electric vehicles, Volvo did not came short, that for sure. From compact to full-size SUV, their exterior and the interior design is the higher end, I would say. A very quality interior with a lot of features. Performance and acceleration response was average comparing to all the vehicles being exposed, but on a higher end, I can definitely say. The only downside is the higher cost of the vehicles, and they do not qualify for tax incentives. But do not get me wrong, this is not the only manufacturer that does not qualify for the tax incentives, since to qualify under the Build America, Buy America Act needs to be built here in the United States. So this is the information so you know if the cars are not built in the United States, then the car will not qualify for the tax incentives. It could still qualify for the rebate depending on your state. Depending on your state that you're in. However, they do have a certain way also for the non-built vehicles being sold here in the United States to qualify for the tax incentives, but that goes through the leasing options. And for that thing, you will need to ask your dealerships how that can work. Toyota had only one full EV at the show, model BZ4X, and it did not take too much of my attention, to be honest. I did sit in it and give it a test drive. However, comparing to the rest of the vehicles is nothing impressive. I would say that it could be in the same rank as the Lexus electric car. They did not make any distinguished difference in exterior or interior to be eye-catching or to understand that that vehicle is fully electric unless you know that that model is fully electric vehicle. Acceleration was too much of a gap between accepting the command and response gap when you start applying pressure on the pedal. So that acceleration side, I was not happy with it. The compact SUV vehicle has plenty of space in interior, and the design of interior when it comes to the spacing, they did proportionally make it really good. A good trunk, and like I said, suiting interior as well, just in general. However, for the price, there are better vehicles to look into. One of the most eye-catching vehicles beside the Porsche Taycan was also the Ford Mustang E-Mach and their F-150 Lightning pickup truck. I have to say that after trying both those vehicles, there was almost not noticeable performance difference between those two. Mustang was just a better on handling due to the sport suspension and lower center of gravity compared to the F-150. But Mustang has a nice big operational display with a lot of features to go through. I did not like the knob being on the screen, kind of weirdly positioned in a bottom section of the screen. It could be more beneficial to have that part of the extended screen and knob separately to operate certain features. Mustang shifting is done by turning the knob on the middle of the console, so it is kind of by the muscle memory still in the area where you should anticipate it. However, my preference would be to have it as a regular shift handle, similar to today's conventional Mustangs. They did that on a Ford 150 Lightning, and I like that feature that was a shifting knob on a central console, same as in conventional shifters. Both vehicles were amazing and worth of money. One benefit that you can gain with the F-150 is that is already compatible to act as your off-grid battery storage system and provide energy to your household in any type of emergency or disasters for almost up to the 3 days, depending, of course, on your conservative use. You just would need to install at your household in your electrical system transfer switch to accept return of the power from an external source. Vehicles, I would definitely look into for sure, and I highly recommend. During the test drive, I had also the opportunity to be driven by professional drivers on the obstacle course which gave me some performance in the Mustang E-Mach. And of course, we also saw some of the racers, the professional drivers, creating and giving us a bit of a show what performance actually the Mustang E-Mach can actually have and make. It was an amazing experience, even though I had not had a chance to sit behind the steering wheel in a performance driving course with a performance vehicle, which maybe somewhere in this video you can potentially see where he is making burning of the tires and all that kind of things, doing the donuts and some type of things that you can see only on these shows. Lastly, I will talk about motorcycles. Well, I had experience with two motorcycles that actually catch my eye, to sit on them and drive them, and to have a good feel and understanding also on the side of the electric motorcycles. There were a lot of e-bikes, e-scooters, PEVs, and other smaller size of electric transportations. However, the two vehicles that I had the most interest and that I will talk about is the first one is Livewire 1 and Del Mar. Those are the two models. And NIO XQi3, a street model that I had a chance to drive. I'll start with the models from Livewire. So they have the Model 1 and Del Mar, but completely different styles of riding them. The Model 1 is a sporty model, and Del Mar is more of a feel, kind of like a naked bike experience. What I like about those models is that they accept standard J1772 connectors. Therefore, they can be charged on a public charging stations and, of course, on a faster level 2 charging stations at home, compared to competitors that they must use their own chargers provided by the vehicle and by the company. And they're working from the regular 120 volt outlets, which that resembles on a longer charging times, right? By the performance, they're almost equal, with the difference that the Model 1 has approximately 20 miles longer mile range, which is insignificant comparing to both of them. Depends on what type of riding style you prefer, sporty or more relaxed. Taking into consideration that was made by Harley Davidson and Livewire, they have done a pretty decent job. However, the price point is a bit higher than anticipated. The price is over $22K. For the ones who think is worth the price tag, I mean, well, all I can say, go for it. The ride is great, and the bike looks overall good. However, for the noise enthusiasts, well, that is a completely different story, and I know what majority of the bikers, or let's say choppers, chopper drivers, what they would potentially say on this. But you will be like a ninja shadow, silent as the dark. Comparing the EV motorcycle models to NIO X Qi3 that are in the same rank or design, I could say that these models surpass them all. However, as an experienced motorcycle driver, there were a couple of the features on the steering bar available for use, but inconvenient in the location to operate. I will give you an example. They have a boost button on your right-hand lever where you actually have the acceleration that gives you instantaneous acceleration, kind of like a nitrous. However, the button, or let's say more like a lever, is inconveniently placed. So if you are throttling and at the same time trying to press that button, it's almost impossible, and it could potentially be dangerous for inexperienced drivers. The second thing that was not, in my opinion, satisfactory was the type of the tires that they're mainly for off-road driving being placed for the street legal motorcycle. Well, why is that? I'll tell you from my experience, and potentially majority of the motorcycle riders, they will agree with me. When you do not have a good grip on the asphalt or concrete, and that can be definitely, lead to the danger into cornering. And when you have the off-road tires used on asphalt and a concrete, they are with the lesser of the grip, because you solely depend on those little squares to give you that attachment to the surface. So it could be very dangerous and very slippery. And specifically on the, let's say, wet conditions of the road. The speed on the vehicle was also a bit disappointing. It could not go over 50 miles an hour, and the mile range was around 50 miles only. However, the price range could be a factor key for some buyers since it's rated below $6,000. And they are potentially talking that maybe there's going to be even further decline on the price, or reduction on a price, we could say. Definitely worthwhile for the money. I mean, I would say it was fun riding it. I wish, though, I could have tried it on the street instead of on a closed course between the cones, but I was able to throttle it to the full speed of the 47 miles per hour. And it was kind of a flimsy in the cornering, or especially when I had a sharp corner or sharp turns to do, that I felt kind of unsecure and unsafe going too fast into those corners. Overall, I could say that the Expo was a good place to be and see what's all about, and to see all the new comes to electric vehicles. And I believe that people should come to these types of events to put themselves behind the wheel and get personal experience before making their decision on purchasing electric cars or the motorcycles, whatever, and to determine which vehicle is good for them and also within their budgets. Yes, the mindset must change in the future for all drivers. If we want to become zero emission population, that is a must. It has to happen. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight worldwide, and it is difficult and it is challenging. And to put us on a fast track for all these, if we want to be on a fast track for this, and if we want to make the change in our country, we need to start from ourselves and change first our own perspective, to be able to help other people who do not see the benefits, or just they're afraid of a change. I understand that the change sometimes can be scary due to not knowing everything in the details about how to do it and how to venture. But therefore, are people like me and people who are presenting or representing on these expos, and how to venture and how to implement all this infrastructure to be more easier and hassle-free to you, and to provide you with all these details and answers to any type of questions you might have. To ease your mind and, just help you on a better decision. I can go on these podcasts into all the details of what I've seen or experienced. However, I do encourage all of you, my listeners, go there. And have this type of personal experience. It is really, it will give you completely different perspective and mind on what you have right now of the electric cars, and in general the infrastructure. If for nothing else, at least go over there for fun. It is a lot of fun. I can tell, and I can definitely vouch, it was really fun testing all these cars, driving them on the streets, driving them on the course, and also driving them on the race circuit. We also had the opportunity to do that on the second day. Well, folks, this would be all for today's report and video podcast. Stay safe and healthy in this season of viruses, and give us a feedback and what you would like to see here, and about what do you would like to get information, or what is your interest. Help us out so that we're going to be able to present that to you. And of course, don't forget to like us, subscribe to us, and share us. And until next time.